The Eagles survive an overtime thriller versus Washington. A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts ball out, but the Eagles defense looks a little rough. Shout out to Jake Elliott. Eagles are 4-0. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. First off, let me just get it out of the way. A win's a win. And we can criticize, and we will during today's show, but the Eagles are 4-0 and one of two remaining undefeated teams in the NFL. Now, I happen to agree with what Jason Kelce said as he walked into the tunnel following the Eagles win.
Way too close.
Way too close against a, listen, good Commanders football team. They played well, credit to them, but it was still a lot of bad, albeit for a win in the end. Let's go back to the game though. Washington took the kickoff and they went right down the field and scored on their opening drive. And honestly, I kept hoping to myself, please let this not be a theme of the day, and I was basically wrong. Now the good news was Philadelphia got the ball back and they did exactly what they did last week early against the Bucs, and that was find A.J. Brown, and then how about give the ball to DeAndre Swift? He's so darn good, one of my favorite Eagles right now on this team. But then in case you were wondering if the Eagles defense was going to show up, they decided not to, as Sam Howell and the Commanders went right down the field yet again. 14 points on their first two drives. Sean Desai has got to figure out something in that secondary. Now, let me just say this about the Eagles defense. Bad day. Overall grade, C-. Sean Desai is dealing with some injuries, but there are some scheming issues, and there is some just secondary play overall that's not been great. Slay has been lackluster, Bradbury's gotten beat, and Justin Evans not being there is a serious issue for Philadelphia, but this secondary has got to get better, or Philadelphia is going to get shredded by Tua or shredded by Patrick Mahomes, or dare I say even Dak Prescott. Now, their following drive, Philadelphia had a 4th down and short. They tried this tush push, but somehow they called offsides on Landon Dickerson, despite the fact that that's a Commanders player's hand touching the football. That's not offsides defense? What are we even doing here? Is this the NFL just trying to get rid of the tush push by having the refs call some BS flags? Let me know what you guys think down below. Either way, the Eagles defense finally showed up on the ensuing Commander drive with this awesome sack by Nicholas Morrow. He's been playing very, very well. I'll be honest, I'm not sure how Nicholas Morrow gets off the field when Nakobe Dean comes back. I get that we all love Nakobe Dean and maybe he could be making these plays too, but what Morrow has done after being cut and then signed back to the practice squad and then being elevated is nothing short of incredible. The Eagles defensive problems, they're not at linebacker right now. By the way, shout out to Skinny Batman here on this final possession for the Eagles in the first half. It wasn't necessarily his biggest day, but a jump ball to get the Eagles into field goal range. Jalen Hurts getting points, by the way, critical at the end of the half and end of the game, puts Jake Elliott in range for a field goal. We're going to forget about this play because of all that happened in the third and fourth quarter, but don't overlook the fact that Hurts, jump ball, Smitty gets him in field goal range and sets up the fact Philadelphia only down 1 score at half. Now, Jalen Hurts has received a lot of criticism through the first 3 games of the NFL season. He hasn't been terrible, but the passing attack really hasn't been there. They've been running behind DeAndre Swift and this great offensive line. Well, he turned that narrative on its head. He was fantastic in this game, especially in the second half. Look at this throw. This is an incredible, incredible throw to start the third quarter to A.J. Brown. And then one drive later, they go for the fake tight end screen. And how about another great throw to A.J. Brown? And much like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, get him involved. They got him involved with big plays after big plays after big plays today. He makes the run after the catch. Olamide Zaccheaus with the block, and the Eagles were back in business. And at this point, I thought Philadelphia was going to start running away with it. This game seemed basically over. Side note, can we never run Kenny Gainwell on 3rd down and 11 inside the red zone ever again? I know Nick Sirianni was asked about this in his post-game press conference and basically said, hey, we've scored touchdowns on this play. We've had success last week on 3rd down and 8. But please, if you're going to give red zone touches to a running back, can we all agree that Agent Zero DeAndre Swift should get those? Now, at this point, it just takes the defense getting a couple of stops. The game's going to be over, force an interception, but they really weren't able to do that. Now, credit to Hassan Reddick, who did get his first sack of the season, waiting for him to go ahead and show up. Well, basically, the only pressure really provided today was that one sack, but he did get a sack, and Philadelphia's defense did start to settle down a little bit for a time there in the second half. But then Sam Howell started doing Sam Howell things. Reddick has got to play better, and the entire defensive line. Technically, they had a bunch of pressures today, like 32 or some ridiculous number of pressures, but they're not pressures that are getting home. They're not pressures that are producing a bunch of sacks despite having 5 today, and they're not pressures that are disrupting these throws, and it's honestly hurting the secondary. The secondary is not good right now. It's greatly struggling. These front 4 guys need to get quarterbacks on the ground or force errant throws to help bail out and protect what is a banged up and weak secondary. Now, the good news is that in a tie football game, with the ball in Jalen Hurts' court, he did what he does all the time throughout his career, and that is win. He went right down the field yet again, couple of nice throws to A.J. Brown, and then how about this dime in the back right corner of the end zone? boy, was A.J. Brown feeling himself, and at this point I said, that's the game winner, that's ball game, Jalen Hurts is fantastic, A.J. Brown, let's go home. Wrong, Sam Howell went right down the field, yet again, converted a 3rd down and 17, a 4th down play, but it was this play to go ahead and tie the game up that made no sense. They blitzed on the previous play and got a lot of pressure, then they played coverage, yet leave Josh Jobe one-on-one on the right side. You gotta make better decisions than this, Desai. You're not getting home with 4-man fronts all game long. Bring a little bit of pressure and make Sam Howell throw a crazy touchdown pass off his back foot. Now, we all knew the Commanders were gonna convert the 2-point conversion, right? Like, so few teams don't convert the 2-point conversion when they come all the way down the field to score, and off to overtime we went. Tails never fail for the Washington Commanders, and honestly, did you think this game was over? Because I really thought they were gonna march right down the field and score, and yet they didn't. Now, you're going to see on Twitter this exact play where it's a deep ball to Terry McLaurin, 3rd down and 5, and Reed Blakenship's forearm, yes, right there, forearm, might have saved the day because Terry McLaurin's toe was out. Now, Commander fans are crazy upset about this on Twitter right now, saying that, oh, there's a little bit of grass in there. You can't tell me, looking at this, that there's indisputable video evidence that his toe is inbounds and not out. You can't. They called it incomplete. It was the right call on the field. This is way too close for them to, 1, overturn it, and 2, do it in a situation where it's 3rd down and 5 on the opening possession of overtime. Get lost. This is incomplete. It was the right call, and credit Reed Blakenship for making a play here when the secondary hadn't done much of that in the second half. Now, it's crazy here, too, when Jalen Hurts got the ball back, he could have lost this game. He already got a game-winning drive in the 4th quarter. You got to give him a second game-winning drive in overtime because the defense couldn't make a stop. Well, Jalen Hurts did what Jalen Hurts does, and that is move down the football field, march, find his receivers, and listen, was it a perfect overtime drive? Did he get him, for a 30-yard field goal? No. It was a 54-yard field goal, but Jake Elliott's automatic.
Ball is spotted. The kick is away, and the kick is gone! And the Eagles win.
His 4th field goal of the day, and can we start talking about the fact that he might be the best kicker in the National Football League? Yes, even better than Justin Tucker. He's incredibly clutch, won a Super Bowl as a rookie. Can we get a thumbs up down below for Jake Elliott? Saving the day as the Eagles nail the field goal in overtime. They win this game by 3. Now, I'm not gonna lie. Plenty of issues on the Philadelphia Eagles right now. Their secondary is greatly struggling. Their front 4 is not getting enough pressure when it's just the 4 that's coming. The play calling is still a little bit strange as to why they give Gainwell some touches over DeAndre Swift, why they still call quarterback runs where the Jalen Hurts takes the snap and then runs forward right into the offensive line. Penalties were absolutely ridiculous, whether you blame the refs or not. There's still issues, but this is a win. And a win gets them to 4-0. And we talked about it all offseason long. You got to win the games early against the mediocre teams. And the Commanders are, listen, they're good. They're a good football team. You've seen them come back against Denver. They laid an egg last week, but we know the Bills are a good football team. The fact the Eagles were able to pull out a win here is going to go a very, very long way towards the Eagles hopefully continuing this run up until the bye week. Now, one side note here, Landon Dickerson did leave in the first half. It's a foot injury. He was seen in a walking boot. We don't have pictures of that yet, but I assume, hopefully, it's precautionary. Sua Opeta filled in pretty admirably. He wasn't bad, but definitely an injury to keep an eye on. You should subscribe to the channel because we'll have an update for you guys on this tomorrow on the Monday edition of the show. Give me your guys' thoughts on the Eagles' victory, right? I know we're going to have some upset people down below, but they did win. How do you grade Jalen Hurts? And what do you think of Sean Desai? That's the question mark I think we're going to hear a lot about in Philadelphia on the radio, on YouTube channels, all over the Philadelphia Inquirer. Is Desai struggling? Is it the player personnel not playing well enough? They're 4-0, but still have a lot of work to do and have an interesting Rams matchup all the way across the country next Sunday afternoon. And we got plenty more stuff happening here on the Thomas Mott Show. We're approaching 20,000 subs, which is crazy in less than a year. If you guys like the coverage, hit subscribe and stay tuned for the Eagles. Plenty more coverage happening next couple of days and weeks. Congratulate yourself, breathe a little bit. They're 4-0. Enjoy another win. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show.